Welcome guys. So in last video what we have done is we have created all the functionality from our form. We validated the form, then we uh, handle the submission part, and we also control that when the form is not validated we restricted the submission. We applied some disable functionality to the button, as well as we applied ng class and some css classes for a certain element to um, stylize it in a certain way depending on a condition. Now I will gonna show you a very important stuff which is called our HTTP request. So go to our blog post, and now if you already went through all the tutorials, you know that we created the ng repeat, we applied ng repeat directive here, then we getting the blocks from a service. So this get blocks is get called inside the controller, and that controller calling a service from which that we created, and in that service we hard coded the blocks. Now for example, this is the controller we are calling for blocks, and this blocks is invoking this service, and this get block function is mentioned inside our service. So now let us imagine a case, because nowhere the data is hard coded in the real application. The data is always from a database or from external files. So let's create a API for this data. So I'm going to cut it here and put this data. After creating a JSON file, and let the JSON file name as blocks.json. Inside I pasted the same data. So this is the external file, and we don't have data now in our controller. This is calling the service, that's fine, but inside service we no more have this data. So if you there will be no more blocks here. So now we have to invoke this JSON file inside our factory service to get all the data. To do that, our Angular provides a service called HTTP. This HTTP is used to invoking data uh, from outer file or database. So let's use that function here. Do this $HTTP here, and we will be invoking the data here. Data, or the same way, blog array. Array is, it was there before, right? Just declare it. It's array, and now we're going to use this data get. So we have mentioned HTTP request, and and we used the get method of HTTP service, and then we assign the same value to blog array. We declare the array and assign the value to that array and returning that array. In our controller, we same way we are getting that you know getting that array. So let's see. We will not be getting any data because whenever we are firing a HTTP request, it will return us a promise, not the value. So what is promise? Promise is, the definition of promise is a proxy for a value not necessarily known when the promise is created. It allows us to associate a handler with an asynchronous action's eventual success or failure results. So basically, we don't when we don't have a result what going to happen with a certain functionality, we return a promise, and the promise has two callback functions that depending upon what happened to the result. If it's a success, then we can associate some functionality to that. If it's rejected, then also we can associate some functionality with that. And also pending also has a state. So there is three states of a promise. One is pending, fulfilled, and another is result. So basically, whenever we fire a HTTP request, it returns us a promise. So we have to go back to our controller, and to resolve that, we have to resolve that promise. To do that, the syntax is we have to assign then, and inside then the first functionality is on success, and second function is if the value is failed. So let's create the function for success. And we have response. Inside we will to resolve that. Let's scope dot get blocks equal to response dot data. Now we have to remove this from here because this is the variable we are calling there in our ng repeat. So this is got resolved, and then let us add one functionality when it's got failed. So dot log failed. It should work now. Cannot read the property get of undefined. Something error is coming. Okay, so I did a mistake here. Sorry to put it here. We go. There is another thing we can do it. Another service using queue or a queue. But remember, this is not different than HTTP, because whenever we fire HTTP request, the queue is already being called internally. But when you have just one JSON file, you do not need to use queue. But remember a situation, we have two JSON files, blogs JSON1 and blog JSON2 perhaps. Okay, then at that time queue gives us the ability to concat the data from both the files and give it back. So that's when queue really helpful. Otherwise, for single data you don't need to, because whenever you fire a HTTP request, queue being called automatically. So you put a queue here and it's like an anti-pattern kind of stuff, because what HTTP is doing, you're going to do the reverse again, reverse it to original steps. That's what happening. So I will be explaining about queue in next video. Thank you.